can do to help, let me know.
Outstanding.
Let me
Okay.
know when you're ready to go on YouTube. Hello, Trustee Winstrup. How are you?
I'm fine, Jason. How are you?
Hi. Let me know when you're live stream now.
I think we're good. I mean, I think sadly because of the vacancies we do have a quorum at this point. Is that right?
Lucia, Shannon, Andres, David. I believe Andres counts. That's the question, is whether he counts towards our quorum or not. I know he was appointed last night. And Andres, hi, I'm Kelly. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's great to have you. He has not done his oath of office, I'm sure.
No, I'm looking that over right now.
So, but you know what? I think we're going to play fast and loose with the rules today and call it a quorum and move on. Jason, don't tell anyone.
You guys are good to go to start whenever you're ready.
No, I think we're fine. I just, this is like, let's just have a meeting.
Shannon, isn't David here?
David is here. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
There are officially.
Yeah, because I knew he was here earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
He's there smiling at you, Lucia.
What's that?
He's there and he's smiling at you.
Hi, David. All right.
Excellent. Before we dive into the agenda, Andre, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and maybe the other commissioners, we can introduce ourselves as well. A spoiler alert, I know Andres already. He and I also work together on One Mamaroneck. So that's kind of how we linked, and that's how I came to learn that he is, vibrant and interested community champion who is seeking opportunities for just kind of making our little village a better place to live. So thank you so much for joining us, Andres.
No problem.
You want to just say hello?
Well, hello, everyone. Well, like Shannon was saying, name's Andres Garcia. I go by he, they pronouns. We did meet in One Mamaroneck using through the community task force, and it's I've only recently joined that as well, but it's definitely nice to be a part of the community. And I first met them through the Black Lives Matter mural, and it's just like been back from college, and I wanted to make sure that I can give back to the community that raised me. So.
Appreciate that so much. And Lucia, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Welcome, Andres. My name is Lucia. I live at the Regatta in Mamaroneck. And I also take the minutes for the board. Welcome aboard. Good luck.
Lucia keeps us honest, for sure.
Try.
And my neighbor, David.
Hi. Yes, I'm David Salco. I live in Fairway Green. And I guess at this point, I'm the longest standing member of the Traffic Commission.
That's right. You are our historic context, David.
And Andreas, just so you know, I'm Jason. I'm the recreation supervisor for the Village of Mamaroneck. I'm here just admitting, so I'll be in the background, but I figured nice to meet you, and so you know who I am.
Nice to meet you. Okay, good to know.
And just FYI, it has nothing to do with the Traffic Commission, but Jason was instrumental in helping One Mamaroneck put on the pop-up drive-in theater that we had at Harbor Island Park last month. So yeah, and sadly couldn't attend, but you're back, Jason.
A little COVID issue scare, but we're back. So yeah.
Yeah.
One of those things, exposure, this, that. So yeah, better safe.
It's constant.
Absolutely. Every day, I feel like. So
yeah.
So Jason, do we have any members of the public with us tonight?
We have 7 members of the public, one being Chief DeRuza. So I'm going to promote the chief to panelist so that she can join in. There's Chief DeRuza.
Welcome.
The other folks we have are Brian Dempsey, Catherine DeChico, Lisa Davidoff, Robert Stark, and Steve Tripoletti. I don't know if any of those are panelists or not. You guys would know better than me.
You know what, Jason, if you could promote Robert Stark, he's in here twice, which is a little weird. But if you could promote one of the Robert Starks to panelist, He was also appointed last night.
Okay, Robert should be able to join. Well, he's got two, so let me try the other one. One of them should. Okay, there's Robert. So now we just have 1, 2, 3, 4 members of the public.
Okay, wonderful. Robert, welcome. Good evening. And you're muted, so if you're talking right now, we can't hear you quite yet. And the second Robert is also here with us.
Is Robert any one of these? Because I can remove the other. It's just, I don't know.
We'll wait to see which one goes unmuted first.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Robert? All right, he might be having some technical issues. Does anyone have contact info? Well, while we're waiting for, oh, wait. Are you there,
Robert?
sir? All right, we'll give him another minute or two to dial in, but I would just like to personally congratulate you, Chief DeRuza, for your recent promotion. I have not had an opportunity to say so in person or via Zoom or whatever yet, but well done and totally merited. And frankly, I'm super psyched. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you guys do for us.
Of course.
oh, now we see you, Robert. We just need to hear you.
Can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Oh dear.
Robert's unmuted for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear us, Robert? Yes or no?
Can
Okay.
you hear me now?
Okay. Well, I don't want this to be a one-sided conversation, to be sure. And I know that you and I have met as well, and I'd love for you to be able to introduce yourself to the rest of the panelists. So hopefully we can hammer out the technical issues. But as is usually the case, I'd like to ask if anyone would like to make a motion to start the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Lucia. Do I have a second? Thank you, David. All those in favor? All right, and so begins the December 2020 Traffic Commission. Typically the way that these things operate, and I'll spend a little more time talking through process just because for Andres and Robert's sake, when we have members of the public with us, we usually give them first billing so that they have an opportunity to speak what's on their mind. Then we'll sort of tackle the new business items. Hopefully you all saw the agenda and the backup documents from Elena. And then finally, old business, which is really just kind of our way of keeping ourselves honest. So we've made an intentional effort to become far more transparent, because in past years, the, common observance or complaint was that like, gee, I float these things to the Traffic Commission, they seem to make a decision and then God knows what happens. It's out there in the ether, right? So we really do try to make a point of, tapping in on what the status is of any actionables from old business items as well. So with that, Jason, I'll ask you to help me facilitate this since I can't see their names.
I'll
would
just start
any
from the top. We'll do Brian Dempsey. Okay, he's going to be allowed to talk. Brian, can you hear us?
Yes, but I was just listening in. I'm chairman of the traffic committee in Rye and just noticed that this meeting was scheduled. So that was supposed to be a 2-year term. I'm on year 22. And Shannon, I'm the one who's, so be careful, Andres, about being here. Shannon, I was the one who was supposed to do the Municipal Planning Federation conference with you.
You and I were going to work together on that. That's right.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian, for joining
and
us.
I served as the village's traffic consultant for about 5 years previously. But I was just listening in to see.
Well, I appreciate you
get
joining
more
us.
ideas.
Absolutely. Welcome, welcome. And, neighbors are always welcome to join. We randomly, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, had George Latimer pop in on our traffic commission meeting, which was
Yes,
delightful,
he comes to mind often, yes. Um, I've known George a long time.
That's really cool. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks.
Who's next, Jason?
Catherine DeChico.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can, Catherine.
Great. So, yeah, my name is Catherine. I'm from Walter's Hot Dogs. So we have something on the agenda this evening. It's my first traffic commission meeting. So I appreciate, being here and getting on the agenda and, for all of you and all the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Really appreciate you being able to come on and join live. I, often will sort of get these traffic incident reports, which, Andres and Robert are about to learn about. And without sort of the person who wrote it or a champion behind it, sometimes the context can be a little bit lost. So we
Of course.
look forward to tackling it with you here with us live. That's great.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Who's next, Jason?
Lisa Davidoff. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Lisa.
Good. Hi, how are you? Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I have my cousin that resides on Stanley Avenue, and I had asked about getting, because she is terminally ill, and we have round-the-clock care that comes to take care of her, handicapped parking space, because sometimes it's not easy, if you maybe know Stanley Avenue at all, to have the girls that have shifts for longer than their 2 hours, and that's permitted on that street. And also in case she ever has to be taken quickly and efficiently to a hospital. So that's why we're requesting a handicap sticker in front of, or a handicapped parking space in front of the home.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much for showing up and advocating on your cousin's behalf, Lisa. I'm terribly sorry to hear about that, but you are, I hope, listed on the agenda. You're one of our traffic incident report forms we'll be talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you again.
Okay.
Shannon?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, Robert.
Yay!
Look at that. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll look for any other members of the public.
I've been resident for 30 years. I just got off the Flood Mitigation Committee for 6 years. I listened to your November meeting, read your October minutes, read the agenda, and I'm anxious to join your happy little group. I feel comfortable. I will fit right in.
Welcome, Robert.
I
Welcome,
hope you feel
welcome.
the same.
Marvelous. And David's not walking away because he disagrees, I promise. It's wonderful that you should call us a happy little group, and we're really grateful to have you here with us, Robert. But it's funny because in my line of business, which by day I actually do work for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, traffic safety is not always a happy topic, and I can tell you this from experience: everybody's an expert, right? Everybody knows exactly what's got to happen to make the streets safer. So. But we do appreciate your enthusiasm, and it's really great to have you on board.
At some point, I have a few questions. I can wait until after you complete everything.
Okay, yeah, let's get through, because we want to respect the time of the folks who have dialed in from the community tonight. And we always do try to make a priority of getting through our new business so that that folks, again, don't feel like they've just sort of screamed into the void here. So with that, Jason, do we have anyone else from the public?
We have two more. We have Mr. Steve Trifoletti.
Hi, Steve.
Hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, good, great. Hi, I'm Steve Trifoletti. I live at 550 Lawn Terrace in Mamaroneck. I just want to talk about the intersection of South Barry Avenue and Guyon Drive. Just some issues about cars parking that prevent visibility issues on Barry. And then if you know Guyan Drive, the street's very, very narrow. So if you park one car on it at that intersection, it's hard to get in and out of Guyan. So when my turn is up, I'll be glad to talk about it. And thanks for listening to this item.
Oh, thank you, Steve. In fact, that particular intersection has been a recurring one. And I know from our fellow commissioner, Karen Kligman, that she was in communication with the VOMPD, who was going to, reinstate the relocatable speed trailer there for issues of just speeding in and near that intersection. I wonder if, just kind of for 30 or 60 seconds, Chief, if you know anything about that, if you could just speak to that.
Sure. So we only moved the speed trailer, I believe it was on the 2nd of this month. So it is turned off, but it is collecting data. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have that information for you.
Terrific. And I think what we might need to do is for folks who are not speaking, if you can just keep yourselves muted because there's a little bit of feedback. But thank you, Steve, for joining us. And
Sure.
Jason, you said we've got one more.
We do. Jean Christian Baca. Hello?
Can you hear us, Jean Christian? Unmute. Oh, dear. Okay. Well, Jean Christian, we will certainly try to get back to you if we can figure out what's going on with the mute and unmute button. I know a couple of us have struggled with that for a little bit, but with that, as I explained to a couple of you earlier on, I'm working with an antiquated laptop here myself. I'm promised a new one in the next few days. So if I look like I'm averting my eyes from time to time, I promise I'm not just like zoning out. I'm actually flipping back and forth between email and the Zoom screen. So I'm taking a look now at our agenda for tonight. We have 4 items of new business. The first one being 325 Stanley Avenue, the handicap parking spot. And I believe that was Lisa that was speaking to us about her cousin and the visiting care that, has to be accommodated for that. So again, bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to open up the backup documentation that goes along with that. And so here we are. So this is a parking issue. It looks like there is not a handicap parking space currently on Stanley Avenue in front of Lisa's cousin's house at 325. It apparently is near the cross street of Palmer and Fenimore. There's Giselle David is Lisa's cousin's name, and because I'm just looking at this really quickly, because she needs to have current 24-hour care, and that the folks who are sort of like cycling through that household need to have immediate and direct parking access. It sounds like, Lisa, you're looking for a permanent handicap space in front of 325 Stanley. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm just going to, again, avert my eyes and quickly open up the map.
I put up the Google Maps.
Thank you,
Is that the
David.
front of the house, Ms. David?
Appreciate it. So Lisa, if you can just help us navigate in front of the White House that we see right here.
Yes, which now, yes, that's the
Okay.
house. Yes.
Okay, and currently it looks like there's street parking with the classic village 2-hour parking sign, which seldom gets paid attention to, but but what we're looking for here is whether the space that in this photo is currently occupied by the compact black car, for that particular space to be turned into a handicap parking only space.
Correct. That, yes. As you mentioned, the 2-hour window is really not enforced very well. So it really makes it difficult to really, navigate when she has to be taken out, even for a doctor's appointment, so much as, when she goes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I guess I confess from, my perspective, and I want to open this up for the commissioners to chime in. I don't see this as a really heavy lift. And I wonder whether, the village has any sort of protocols in place for deciding when and if a single handicap spot is merited, how it might be enforced, put in place. But, when it comes to a matter of somebody requiring 24-hour care, and this being a residence with, an elderly person or a person who's terminally ill, it just seems like a fairly sensible and easy fix. Am I missing something, Kelly, or?
You're not missing anything. We had this issue recently, you may recall, for a resident on Center Street. The question, like the base question though, is there someone in the home that has a handicap permit, right?
Got it.
And I'd like some clarification on that, because what I'm hearing is that this space is being requested for visiting nurses who may not have the permit that would allow them to park in the spot. So I just want to clarify that.
Mhm. Right. No, we do have that sticker that hangs, that I would provide to the aides if necessary, and also, to anyone who needed to help my cousin come out. It's really to ensure that it's accessible.
Yep.
The driveway isn't easily accessible. In fact, we had to create the one step up, we created this little ramp, some cemented ramp, just so that we could get her out quickly enough from the first. You could see, well, you can't see it. That's the wrong, that picture is not accurate. From there, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that generally the Board of Trustees, acts on easily. It's not a controversial thing. What we do need to do is draft a resolution. The Board of Trustees has to pass the resolution. Again, there wouldn't be a problem passing it in these circumstances. And then the Department of Public Works needs to go put in the sign, paint the striping, so it's that. Okay.
David, you have
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, if I can just pop in. Generally, and that's done after the Board of Traffic Commissioners votes, requesting this be done, just to follow the procedures, but that's it. Go ahead, David, I'm finished, sorry.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a driveway there that's part of the property of the house.
Right. It is a 2-family home, and there's always a car there. Usually, even 2 for the person that lives upstairs, who is one of the caretakers. But not, there's many hours in a week, and we need other full-timers coming in.
Sure.
We need a couple of them,
So
actually.
the handicap placard goes with the car. So if
Or can it be
you have a
swapped into
handicap-
different
I'm
cars?
sorry?
I guess the question is, could that placard be swapped into different cars? In other
No,
words,
it can't. You have to, the handicap placard goes with one specific car. So if you put a handicap parking space on the street there in front of the house, the only cars that can park there are cars with handicap placards assigned to them. So the caretakers, unless they themselves are handicapped and have their their own handicap placard assigned to them in their car, they would not be able to use that space. In addition, the difference between this house and the house on Center is that the house on Center had no driveway parking, no other parking available. This house has, and this driveway it can take at least 3 cars. And to get from the driveway to the house looks to be an easier lift than getting from the street to the house.
Oh, no.
So the parking in the handicap space wouldn't help the handicapped person any more than parking in the driveway.
Well,
I'm not sure that this is the same as what we had on Center, and that it would even be an effective use of a handicap space on a very crowded space where everybody's looking for everybody else is also looking for parking.
this is my husband, Brad, if you don't mind, he's gonna also chime in.
Yeah,
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay.
yeah. The issue is that with that driveway, you know,
It's
although
very
it could fit
narrow.
3 back to back, you'd have to move cars in and out. So what happens is you either have you have aides coming every 6 to 8 hours.
Depending.
So, because it's round the clock nursing care.
Mhm.
So if you have one aide in that parking spot, you know, really can't fit any other cars behind you because they can't get out conveniently. So that's why we were hoping a spot in front. We would always have one car that could get out easy enough. And what I was wondering on the placard, could there be one aide who has the placard, even though it's the aide's car? Because the aide who lives in the second apartment, who always has trouble finding parking on the street, I wonder if we couldn't put the placard in their
Right.
car. So we always have a car that has access to take Giselle, the inhabitant, when she needs to go to a doctor's or if, you know, an emergency or something happens.
And
So just to clarify, Lisa and Brad, the 2 family residence that your cousin lives in, the second resident is actually one of the aides who helps care for Giselle.
Yeah.
And so if she had that handicap placard, could occupy the handicap space when she was there. And then the visiting, you know, rotating caregivers could use the driveway. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that driveway is very narrow, so accessing that from the house is almost impossible. You'd have to pull the car entirely out, just so you know that it is really better from the front.
As far as wheelchair
As far,
access.
yeah, wheelchair
Right.
access, 'cause we've
Right.
tried.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
work. Yeah.
Understood. Understood.
As to your question as to whether the aide could use the placard, I'm certainly no expert on the law in this matter, but it's my understanding that when the state or municipality, the county issues the handicap placard, they do it with some sort of a document from the doctor who's certifying that there is a need for it, and the name of the person who has the need for it has to match the name on the registration of the car that it's being assigned to.
Yeah, so maybe we'd have to investigate that because this person, obviously, she's handicapped, so she'd never be given registration or a
drive.
license
Right.
for a car. And she's also a single person, so she doesn't live with somebody that has a car. It's one of the aides.
That I think that's worth looking into, and I suspect that there's a bit more flexibility than we might be guessing at here, because I just anecdotally I know from experience in my own family where I've had, you know, aunts and uncles and things like that who've cared for people with physical ailments and disabilities, where they've been able to get, you know, handicap placards in order to get them to their appointments, or, you know, get close to, you know, shopping or something like that in order to help them out. So Lisa and Brad, if you don't mind us kind of putting that task back on you to check into, it sounds like then we could, resurface this at next month's traffic commission meeting, and put it up for a vote at that point. As I said earlier on, I mean, it's, and Trustee Wenstrup kind of confirmed that the fix is not hard. I think it's just we kind of dot our I's and cross our T's and do it the right way so that we're on solid ground to make this happen.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Can I just tell you before you go, I've been in your situation and I know it's just very hard. And so I just want you to know that I'm sending you my best thoughts and can really sympathize with the situation you're in. So take care.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, really sorry.
Janet?
Bye now.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Yes, Robert.
There's no guarantee that that space will be used for that purpose. A handicap space can be used by anybody with a handicap sticker.
That is true.
Maybe
That
we
is
should
true.
find out if there are other people on the street who have handicap stickers and maybe to inform them if that were to come up, the need for this particular space in this particular location.
That's
a possibility.
you bring up a great point, and I know that we've dealt with this in past, perhaps it was Center Avenue or another one that I'm not remembering at this point, but I think that's where sort of neighbors communicating just comes into play, right? Because anyone with a handicap placard can occupy the space and it's legal. The point,
Like first come, first serve.
right. The point being is first come, first serve, and the whole purpose of this, if legally we can help make it happen for this lovely woman, is it's to make sure that her care can get to her easily, and that if she has to get out of the house quickly, it can be done so expeditiously. So let's wait and see what Lisa and Brad discover in terms of the placard, and whether that can be someone who's a caregiver and not necessarily a spouse, and we'll perhaps see what we can do to help get the word out on Stanley to support this.
Shannon, Gene Christian's back on. Do you want to see if we could?
Oh yes, thank you, Gene Christian.
All right, let's see. Gene Christian?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was actually so excited I got called on. I exited. But I'm alongside my sister, Catherine DeChico. I'm a part of Walter. Yeah.
All right. Power in numbers. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let me flip back now to our agenda. And again, I'm sorry for the clicking and flipping around. Next, we have on our new business, the Rhinebeck Middle School High School school speed limit flashers on East Boston Post Road. And I'm going to open up the backup. And this is incident number 2, which having trouble finding. Just give me a second, folks.
I drove by this afternoon. The flashes are not there.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking through Elena's materials. I'm not seeing the traffic incident report form for this one.
It's there. It's right behind the minutes.
Okay.
It's the second incident report.
Behind the minutes. I do apologize. Thanks for bearing with me, folks. This is which of the 4 files, Lucia?
Oh, I'm not on that. I have it printed. It's from Carla Bruno.
Okay.
Carla. I think it's number 2, if I'm right.
Right, it's number 2 on the agenda. Oh, here we are. Okay, thank you.
Number two.
Cara Bruno, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Did not check what type this is. Says she's writing on behalf of the Rhinebeck Middle School High School PTSA, looking to get info on how to get posted school speed limit flashers along Boston Post Road from North Barry to Horn Ridge, which would cover the post road for all 3 of the Rhinebeck schools. Is it surprising that there is nothing there at all with the schools from K through 12? It is surprising. I'm sorry. That's a statement, not a question. Can you help us with this? Thank you. So this is school speed limit flashers on the post road. We know that there are currently school speed limit signs with, you know, kind of high visibility on North Barry, on some of the cross streets. There is nothing like that on the post road in the Rhinebeck district, though, is there?
There's one at the Mamaroneck School, at the high school, Mamaroneck High School.
Right, that's Mamaroneck Union Free School District. Different school district. I know, surprisingly, it's 2 different. So this is the stretch of Post Road that's sort of toward Rye, you know, stretching from Barry eastbound. And it sounds like they're interested in a similar sort of, you know, school speed limit, 20 miles per hour when school's in session, you know, signage and flashing lights.
I know that the one at the high school was done because the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees went to the
state
authorities at the state level.
Yeah.
To get that put in. So I would imagine, and this is the same Route 1 state
Yep.
road that we're talking about. So I would imagine that this would be above our pay grade.
Not necessarily, David, don't you? Kelly, were you part of the trustees when that happened, or?
I was not, but I have a faint memory of, you know, it taking a long time and having to go to the state. So if that's something that the traffic commissioners want the village to look into, we certainly can. I would just set expectations for a long haul.
Right.
Well, are there different waiting times depending on like, the types of flashing lights?
It's more the jurisdiction question. So because Post Road is, you know, managed by, controlled by the state DOT, what ends up happening is any kind of changes or improvements to the roadway environment has to be floated to the state DOT. And typically you're thrown into a bin where they're trying to prioritize this project against 89 other projects across the state. And what they'll typically do with their dollars is try to apply them to the highest crash risk locations first. So sadly, you know, what ends up happening is that we're in the Highway Safety Improvement Plan, we're looking at how many people are hit by cars, you know, and if you can make the case that like this is a really risky crash zone, we've got a ton of kids that are having to cross Boston Post Road on foot. It's a school zone, you know, there's all kinds of collisions happening or something like that, then your case gets elevated and you're more likely to get that attention. What I guess would be a logical next step in response to this, and I throw it out there to my fellow commissioners and let me know what you think, is for us to see whether we can get, you know, 3 years worth of crash data on that stretch of the Post Road that encompasses the Rhinebeck School District area. Is that something that's doable, Chief?
So, yeah, we can get that. The only intersection that I think has some crash data would be the Post Road and Harrison Avenue. But I don't know if it comes into play that the school isn't actually on Route 1 versus the high school being on Route 1, and that's why they have the 20 mile per hour. I don't know if it would be approved just for the fact that the schools are off of that road, not directly on it.
No, that's a fair point. And I think that was the same issue that we ran into in getting school zone signs posted on Barry. There's not actually a school on Barry, it's just an entrance to the backside of a school, right? So,
Right.
okay, fair enough. I certainly, this is one of those, and, again, Robert and Andres, mostly for your benefit, since you're just joining and figuring out protocols and stuff like that. Sometimes when, it's a big and sticky enough issue like this where we don't really have enough data, enough intel, whatever, we'll just give what feedback we can give to that resident via an email and see whether they're still interested in trying to pursue this. So with that, I'd be happy to volunteer to write back to the resident, Cara Bruno, and let her know that, it is state jurisdiction, that there's not actually a school that sits on it. So it would be challenging, to say the least, and that, for the village to get permission from the state to get school zone flashing lights or signs or whatever high visibility indicators there might be a lengthy process, and just kind of find out whether she's still interested in pursuing it.
Yeah. Well, if it helps, if anything, anecdotally, I did go to Rennick High School, or just the Rennick district. It's been a little bit over 3 years since I graduated, but teenagers not really paying attention to the road. So I can't say that there's been accidents, but I know that, there are just times where, don't always pay attention.
Fair enough, Andres. Thank you for that. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
so Shannon, you're gonna contact the resident? Okay, and it's a state road, right?
That is correct. That is
Okay, good.
correct.
Shannon, I just would throw in, just hoping this will be helpful, but because it's a state road issue, resident may want to write to the state representatives, the state assembly and the state senators involved. Sometimes that can help.
Yep. Also a good point. Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
All right. Clicking right along. The other thing for Robert and Andres' benefit, my fellow commissioners will attest, I tried desperately to keep these meetings to 60 minutes or less. I look like I might fail on that tonight, but we're gonna give it our shot. Everyone's got a bit of Zoom fatigue. I get it. And next, though, we have 2 guest stars for this next one. New business item number 3 is on Walter's Hot Dogs and a crosswalk. So I'm going to open up the backup for number 3. As soon as I can find it. Here we are. Number 1, 2, and 3. Request for a crosswalk. High-risk crash location involving pedestrians, dangerous driving behavior. So I'm guessing, yep, this is on Palmer Avenue. So the incident details: for as long as our family can remember, we had a crosswalk for kids from the high school for customers. They paved Palmer Avenue and never put it back. Cars are honking outside our restaurant. It's a very high-risk crossing for high school students. I think if anywhere in the village needs a crosswalk, it would be where there's a high volume of kids crossing. Our customers are always complaining that it got taken away. Okay, so sounds like something that existed before Shannon Purdy was even a memory.
Yeah, you guys can hear me?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, so I mean, essentially, yeah, as far back as we can remember, and also, our customers who bring it up to us so often, we had a crosswalk there. We believe that is what happened. I'm sure, you guys might know best, that they repaved and, didn't put the crosswalk back. But it is, not only, we see it, because we have all the kids crossing, throughout the day. But not only is it, kids crossing just to go to the other side of the street, we're kind of right across from the bottom of the steps out of the high school, out of that exit of the high school. And, there's kids crossing, there's, parents picking up their kids on both sides of the street. For us, obviously, we have customers, crossing here and there, and the kids coming over, throughout the day. But it just seems like such a, you know, a high pedestrian traffic area from our point of view. And we're always wondering, you know, kind of what happens to the crosswalk. And we have people bring it up to us, you know, once a week, more than once a week. So it's just something we wanted to, you know, bring to your attention and, you know, see what happened and if there's anything we can do.
Thank you, Catherine and Jean Christian. And I'll tell you two quick notes. First of all, sometimes when, you know, roads get repaved, the safety measures that previously existed simply get forgotten to get put back in place. It's that, you know, basic of an issue. It's nothing intentional. It's just that the engineers are focused on what they got hired to do. And that was it, right? And I think that this is something that certainly precedes all of us being on the Traffic Commission, except maybe David. David, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But the other point I was going to make is that I take the 60 bus between Mamaroneck and White Plains, and I can certainly attest that, you know, traveling down Palmer Avenue on that stretch, not only do you all enjoy a good, healthy amount of pedestrian traffic, which is excellent for business, I know, but you're absolutely right. I mean, there's pedestrians that are trying to navigate that crossing, and with the shorter daylight hours in particular at this time of year, the closest crosswalks are at least a half a mile in either direction. You know, and people are just, we're humans, right? We're going to go from point A to point B. What's the closest way to get me there? What's the closest, you know, shortest amount of distance I got to travel before I can get my hot dog, right? So like, basically, it's unreasonable to expect people are going to walk from the high school side of Palmer to the closest crosswalk in order to get to your store. So I guess this is one of those that I would throw out there. I think this very much from my perspective meets the Vision Zero charge, which is prioritizing pedestrian safety. You know, it sounds like it's more than just an issue of high school students. It's an issue of consumers and residents who, you know, this is a heavy crossing area that might deserve a mid-block crosswalk. Throw it out there for consideration and discussion.
I have a comment.
Please, Robert.
I live around the corner. I drive down that street frequently. I don't see how a crosswalk in and of itself will help. Anyone who drives down that street during the time Walters is open sees people standing on one side of the street or the other waiting to cross. I typically go slow and allow them to cross over. I think most people do, but I don't see a crosswalk without some kind of sign, you know, yield or slow or beware of something in addition to the crosswalk. Furthermore, there's a yellow flashing light coming towards, I don't know if it's north or south, going towards New Rochelle, that most cars don't follow, and I've never seen anyone get ticketed. I've heard people complain that that is not, maybe you could talk to the police chief, whether that anyone is there to make sure that people comply with the flashing yellow lights.
No, great points, Robert, and thank you for being a safe driver in our village. Unfortunately, not everybody is, and people often tend to inflate their own, you know, safety, you know, when you ask them how great a driver they are. But one of the good pieces of news is that, you know, whenever crosswalks are being, you know, put in or whatever, the village did buy a bulk of these, you know, in-road must yield to pedestrians. It's the law. Bollards that are relocatable and frankly they're crashable. I hate to use that term, but you know, for the poor driver that's going to go by at high speeds and hit the thing or nick it or whatever, it's like a weeble wobble, right? It can kind of go over without getting completely destroyed. So those are pretty standard issue now. So we do have that opportunity.
I had a question. I wanted to bring up the. No, I don't see it. So in the picture that you gave us with your application, it looks like there's a crosswalk there going right about halfway between the order window and the pickup window. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the only picture I could find, to send you guys that I saw the
So
the
what's on
crosswalk
the
in.
the high school side of that crosswalk? Is there a curb cut or
It's the curb and then there's stairs, which is where, we see most of the kids coming down, or, going up obviously, but
okay?
it's probably directly across from the crosswalk that we have there in place.
So does anybody know? Are there restrictions on where you can put a crosswalk if there is no curb cut or a traffic light or a signal or anything? Or can we just throw a crosswalk right in the middle of the street there?
From a traffic safety engineering standpoint, I mean, certainly curb cuts and, the properly engineered sidewalk is like the ideal situation. But a mid-block crosswalk being put in place, which is basically what this would be, there's nothing to prevent the village from putting one in. I think because, as Robert pointed out, there's already kind of a flashing light that is warning slow down, and that has to do with the school zone. I'm confident. It just so happens that Walters also happens to benefit from that when people actually pay attention to it. But yeah, no, from traffic safety engineering standpoint, there's nothing to prevent the crosswalk from being put in, even without the curb cuts. Again, in the most ideal world, we'd have spectacular ADA compliant sidewalks throughout our village with curb cuts at every intersection.
So then I'll explain to the new members of the Traffic Commission and the people applying for this. What we do here is pass it up to the Board of Trustees. When we vote for something, nothing actually happens except that it goes up to the Board of Trustees and they can decide whether they want to do it or not. So with that having been said, and seeing that there probably is a high amount of need for this crosswalk, I would make a motion that we approve a crosswalk going across Palmer from between the high school and Walters.
I'll be happy to second that motion. Can we get a vote from our remaining traffic commissioners?
I vote yes.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimity. It's a beautiful thing.
It passed? Everybody's passed? Yes, okay.
It passed. All right. Catherine and Jean Christian, thank you so much for joining us and for advocating on behalf of your community.
Again, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
You also.
So Shannon, this will go now to
the board.
Board. Yep. Okay. Out of our hands. Great.
Out of our hands. Have at it, Kel.
This may be something that I can talk to Jerry about, since it sounds like it was a repaving, repainting issue. I'm not sure.
It might be a DPW just getting out there with a can of paint.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see. I mean, it was there before. Why not?
Right.
I'm not sure this is something that is new and would require a resolution. So I'll just Jerry tomorrow.
Nice. Appreciate that. Yeah, I love the backup picture that said, archival data or something like that. That was really the Mamaroneck Historic Society. Crosswalk used to exist, right?
Could someone please just send me that real quick so I have it to send in the email to Jerry? That'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
If it's all right, if I could also get just a copy of the attachments.
The artifacts, yes.
Yeah,
You've got it on.
by way of explaining, I'm not a member of the Board of Traffic Commissioners. I'm just the trustee liaison, so I don't vote. I don't vote.
Okay.
Just the go-between.
Yeah, that was in the agenda package for those of you that were on the committee when the agenda package.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Andres and Robert were included in that. So I'm as soon as we get off the call, I'm going to forward it to the two of you, I promise.
That's good.
Cool. So the final piece of new business we have, and I know that, was it Steve? Yes, Steve that brought this to our attention. This is the parking issue at Barry and South Guion Drive. And we certainly spoke about the chief spoke about the relocatable speed trailer that's there collecting data right now in the dark so that people are not alerted to it. We're, concerned that when you've got that speed trailer on and live, that people's driving behavior might be adjusted to accommodate. So residents really want to know what the real speeds look like, even, when that trailer is dark. It's an interesting tool because, for folks who drive by one and they see the speed being flashed at them, a lot of people believe that they can get actual citations, right? That this thing is taking a picture of their license plate, that they're going to get a citation in the mail. It just collects data. I mean, I know that it looks really spooky and that you're like, oh my God, I'm doing 37 and a 30, any minute now I'm going to get a $500 fine. If only that were the case, but no, in fact, it's just collecting data and helping us better understand, driver behavior on our local roadways.
Jenna?
Yes, sir.
When I drove by this afternoon at that corner, the machine was there, but there was nothing displayed.
Correct.
Was
So
it
right now
supposed to be?
it's in dark
Is it
mode right
collecting
now.
speed? Okay.
It's collecting the data, but it's not,
Letting residents know.
Right. Exactly. But Steve, aside from that, I'm gonna open up your incident report here because it sounds like there's.
Okay, I'm back on, off mute.
Okay, terrific.
Sure. So there's can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. This is that's South Barry Avenue, and you can see the north and south arrow. I'm talking about the western side of Guyan Drive. And of course, this is at the bottom of the hill, just before the bridge over the creek.
Okay.
And the cars go fairly fast, but if there's a parked car on South Barry at this intersection, it makes it very difficult to make a left turn. You can inch your way out to see better visibility, but it puts yourself in a precarious situation by the front of your car. So if there's any cars parked between the driveway of the first house on the corner and Guyan Drive, it's really a gamble when you make a left-hand turn. And it's been like that for a long time. People go fishing, they park there. And also there's a new resident that moved in on Guyan Drive, and he parks multiple vehicles in that area. So it's just visibility, and the speed of the cars are coming down makes it hazard. I'm very careful. I'm just worried about everybody else. So it's just a matter of just like 2 parking spaces being blocked off. There is no parking to the south. There's no parking sign there, but there's nothing to the north on South Barry.
Okay. David, can you do your magic and pull that up on Google Maps? This is an excellent diagram, by the way, Steve. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me bring that up. But that is the best incident report of the year.
Yeah, right? And usually we get kind of a few cryptic words. This is great.
Thank you.
Frankly, I think that his incident report and diagram are better than what I'm going to.
What you're seeing on Google Maps? Okay, excellent.
I drove over there today and it's accurate, so I can vouch for its accuracy.
Okay, so I'm just looking. So the space or spaces in particular that you're concerned about, Steve, are on South Barry itself.
Yeah, there's only a few, 1 or 2, but cars park right up to the intersection to go fishing or just to visit a neighbor. And it just makes it so tough. I mean, they park right up to the pole there. It just makes it so tough to make that left-hand turn, and it's kind of scary. It's been like that a long time, but the second issue that I'm going to bring up participated my sending this form in.
So the cars that are parking close to the intersection are doing so illegally.
Oh, no, you can park there you can park on South Barry on the northbound side, but the southbound side, which you're going downhill, there is a sign that says no parking.
Okay.
So I mean, it seems logical that it would be on either side, but
Yeah, I mean that, right. We always begin conversations about parking by acknowledging as a group that, you know, it is probably the single most recurring issue in the village that we encounter, not just on the traffic commission, but just as residents here, right? I mean, it's a tiny, wonderfully cozy village with narrow, lovely, quaint streets that, you know, street parking is really the only option for many, many, many residents and lots of visitors and consumers as well.
Right.
You know, and it's not to minimize the potential for danger here because you know,
When I was there today at midday, there was very few people parked on South
Right.
Barry Avenue. Does that change for the overnight parking or at some other time of day?
no, you're right. It's not, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, it's a hazard. So, I mean, the cars do go fast.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen all the time. Recently, and I think I put that into the traffic forum, a new person moved into Guyon where the stop sign is on that side of the street. I don't know the house number. So there was an elderly lady that lived there before, and she had no cars. And now that it's sold, the new neighbor has multiple cars, so he parks there, and he also parks it on Guyon. And that was my second issue, is parking on Guyon at this intersection. So the first item is making a left turn onto South Barry going north. It's sporadic, but it is a hazard. And if you go up to Stewart, there's no parking signs at that intersection. It's on the four corners, and I'm not sure why there's not one over here.
Well, I would assume that's because up at Stewart, it's busier.
Yeah, okay.
Down here at Guyon or Guyon,
Yeah.
since there's not much harm to people who want a space on South Barry, since there aren't that many. I don't think it would be a problem putting in another no parking for the first car length or two.
Yeah, that's fine. Even if it's one car, it just, right now, if you inch out, your front of your car is like in danger. And, but yeah, even if it's one car, that's not, is something, you know what I mean?
I you know, don't mean to push this off or anything like that, but this might be one of our, you know, situations where, because this has been an area, a corridor, an intersection that's had recurring issues, and we've got the relocatable speed trailer there once again. You know, it sounds maybe more like a driver behavior on Berry Avenue issue than it is a parking issue. I wonder whether, you know, this merits a kind of group visit to go out and do a quick mini assessment.
Again, look at the visibility though. If there is a car there, it's difficult to make the left turn no matter what. So it's just like it's a hazard because you can't see the cars coming down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, I mean, whatever you can do, but even if it's one car space, they park right up near the pole.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, the second item is, so there's more cars being parked, and as well as gardeners' trucks on Guyon right at the intersection, like just right at the stop sign. So the street is very narrow, as maybe David had seen today, or whoever drove there today. The street's very narrow. So if you park a car, which they are, and you can't blame the resident that moved into the house. I mean, he paid a lot of money. He wants to park the car in front of his house. You can't blame him. But if you park at the stop sign, it makes you go into the other lane to go, onto South Barry, northbound or southbound. But it also makes it tough to pull into the street. So I know if you go right up the street on Guyon, there's a number of no parking signs on either side of the street, especially up by Lawn Terrace Apartments. But if you try to make a right turn from South Barry onto Guyon, and there's a guy following you right behind you, and that intersection is blocked. It's hard to make a turn now as it is. It makes it a little bit of hazard for you to stop and navigate around these parked cars. So again, they're parking right up to the stop sign. You don't see it often, but it's happening sporadically. But it's just at the intersection, getting on and off of it lately because of the new resident and contractors and this and that, gardeners. It just makes it a little tough to navigate that. So just, I mean, if there's something you can do, fine, but it's just a narrow street.
Right. No, I think
And you can-
I'm sorry, go
You
ahead.
can see the signs, similar signs up the street on Guyan because that's also narrow up there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I throw it out to my fellow commissioners, but I think this might be one of those that merits a visit. I know from other places and corridors in the village, street parking kind of right up to the yield sign or the stop sign is not uncommon. But I
Yeah.
think that typically when that is put in place, it's on a roadway that's pretty slow travel to begin with, right? So, I mean, one of the things, Steve, for your benefit, and Andres and Robert, you're about to get your hazing here, but like one of the things that we like to say is that there's never a reason to travel more than 30 miles per hour throughout the village of Mamaroneck. And there's a reason that, intentionally, the board and the mayor opted to reduce local roadway speed limits to 25. We live in a wonderfully cozy, local, communal village environment, and cars just do not need, cars and trucks for that matter, do not need to travel quickly to get through here. We don't have any highways, thank God. We don't have any, secondary roadways that demand that we go 45, 50 miles an hour. So whatever we can do to reinforce that environment of, our roadways are shared environments. They certainly, we've got to move our vehicles, we've got to move our goods and our trucks, and they are the arteries of our businesses and everything like that. But just as equally important, we need to make sure that we're accommodating pedestrians and wheelchairs and people accessing transit and the lawn, mowers and the gardeners and the folks who are going to come and give care to the cousin who's, terminally ill in her house. So whenever we talk about these sort of safety issues, we always got to remember it's in the context of our Vision Zero initiative and maintaining that, shared roadway environment that prioritizes all roadway users. So
Oh, sure. Well said. And I guess, again, the street is so narrow, the garbage truck and God forbid a fire truck or anything, it's really tough. So the immediate intersection is the concern on Guyan. The other side of Guyan Street on the eastern side is fine. It's a wider intersection, but this particular side, you can't really it's difficult. I have a small BMW. It's hard to make the turn if there's a car there. So whatever you can do, it's greatly appreciated. If you take a look at it, it'd be great.
Okay.
Hey, Shannon?
Yep, go ahead.
So just to let you know, I believe in the vehicle and traffic law, it's 30 feet that a car can't park before a stop sign. So if a resident sees that, they can just notify the PD and we can send someone out and they'll get ticketed if they're within that space.
But with no sign up?
Yeah, as long as a stop sign is there, that's it.
That's interesting because there are a couple of spots in the village where cars certainly are, the signage suggests that they can park much closer than that. And I agree with you, Chief. I mean, I've seen the same myself, but I just
And that was
figured-
one of the issues that was on, I think, Park, either at Park or at English,
Mhm.
with the stop sign there too.
Yep. Let's
And, Mr. Sarnoff, Mr. Daniel Sarnoff joined us, just so you know, he's on.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Hey, welcome, Dan.
Hey, good to be here. My other meeting finished up, so.
Haha, and you just missed us.
Well, I know there are a couple items that you may have some questions on that.
Well,
you talked about that post road item with the
Okay, we're not.
Coming up, okay.
Coming, absolutely. No, it's perfect timing, Dan, because we can rely on you for a lot of our old business items, which we'll check in a moment. I just want to kind of like wrap this up. So Steve, if we do plan a live visit out to that area, so what we do are what we call walking safety assessments. They're just, as they suggest, like a couple traffic commissioners coming out with, hopefully a member of the Board of Trustees, a member of the Village of Mamaroneck Police Department. If we can get, somebody from kind of the planning and engineering side, that's always helpful. But we just literally come out and pay a visit to that corridor or that intersection and, observe the driver behaviors, observe what's going on in the live environment so that we can make a better sort of reasoned, educated, informed decision about what to do with that intersection. So
Great, good
if that's
job.
the case, would you be interested in participating?
Oh, sure. Just give me a call, email, whatever. That's fine. Sure.
Beautiful.
Sure. Great.
All
Thank-
right. Mini assessment.
Do
Any,
you know when, Shannon, you know when?
no, that will require me to look at my calendar. So
Okay. But the speed trailer is still there, correct?
correct.
All right, great. Okay. Okay.
All right. With that, and before I turn it over to old business, and thank you again, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, mostly for Andres and Robert's sake. One of the things that I've been promising and failing to follow through on for months now is we have the luck of having a really good traffic safety engineering consultant that the village has secured through AKRF called Matt Carmody. And Matt and some of his colleagues have been out to join us on our walking safety assessments. They're really informative and eye-opening experiences. But one of the things that Matt and I have been talking about doing for a while now is to put together kind of a Traffic Safety 101 webinar. Not just for the commission, but for members of the public as well, just to give folks kind of the sort of baseline level of understanding of the engineering and outreach and enforcement and education elements that drive behavioral choices. And I know that sounds kind of weird because you're like, hey, I'm in charge of my behavior behind the wheel, but there's a number of things that can help kind of like dictate the way that drivers will respond and react. I'll, from a national perspective right now, based on what's happening with, having lived through a global pandemic over the past year or so, people are stressed. People are freaked out and, we're all kind of living in this shared trauma. So not surprisingly, traffic fatalities nationwide are spiking immensely. The total volume of vehicles on the roadways is down, but by comparison, the number of incredibly high speed crashes, very violent traffic crashes are really up. And so, I guess the reason I bring this up is that when I can get this together, and I'm hoping in time for our January meeting, it'll be kind of a neat, like bring us all to the same baseline level of understanding of those countermeasures that do change behavior and those that are too often grabbed as like quick and easy fixes that in fact might make a bad problem worse, if that makes sense. One example that, I know Dan and the chief will echo me on is, we hear all too often from residents like, we need a stop sign. We need a stop sign here and in another 5 feet and in another 10 feet after that. And, what happens when you have a corridor that has endless stop signs in a row is that people ignore them, and that all we're really doing is putting holes in the ground and spending a lot of money. So anyway, I share that because I promise there's something really cool coming our way soon. And with that, we'll turn to old business on our agenda. And Lucia, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these are just kind of like to keep us honest in terms of like things that we've already talked about. So like the first one, the walking assessment, Fenimore Road, Prospect and Monroe Ave.
Yeah. Lucia is muted.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep, just to, yeah, keep it on. Unless you want it off, it's up to you.
no, keep it on, keep it on. The
Okay.
walking assessment report is one that's still in my lap, and
You're still, yeah, we're still waiting for it, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Shannon?
yes, sir.
That was one of my questions, these walking assessments. Are those for pedestrian safety or rider safety or both? And where are they stored or filed anywhere that I can read them? And do
Absolutely.
we all participate, all the group members participate in these walks?
So walking safety assessments are kind of the less technical version of an approach that the Federal Highway Administration uses called the roadway safety audit. And what we've adopted in the village is, it's a standardized tool. Everybody who attends comes and is given a little briefing, and we've got like a neat little checklist of prompts that we use. It is literally to get out there on a roadway on your feet and walk it, and not just walk it in the context of like, are there sidewalks and can I cross easily, but to think about it in terms of, if I had to navigate this as a person with limited, vision abilities, or if I had to navigate this in a wheelchair, or if I, have a small child in a stroller or an elderly person that I'm trying to help across, could I do so easily? And yeah, I mean, they do genuinely prioritize non-motorized safety. So by that, I mean, folks who are outside the vehicle, pedestrians, cyclists, people accessing transit. The reason that we take that approach is that essentially by making the roadways safer for the most vulnerable roadway user, you make it safer for all. What we know at the national level is that when you're in a car, and in particular in newer cars, you've got 7 airbags protecting you. You've got a seatbelt. You've got, driver controls. You've got automatic braking. You've got, lane correction. So it's not that people inside the vehicle are, bulletproof, but they're a heck of a lot safer in a village environment than somebody who's not. So that's kind of the context for what these are. We do have the published walking assessments, I think, are posted on the Village Traffic Commission website. Is that right, Dan, Jason?
I can check. I think they are, but if not, we can make sure Robert gets all the copies that he needs.
Cool. Yep. And again, part of that promised like seminar webinar that Matt and I are hoping to put together is going to be a little conversation from our village manager about just exactly how important these walking assessment reports are to the village, because they really do help them to prioritize roadway projects and figure out, where they're going to place our very scant hard-earned tax dollars first, based on what the data is telling us.
And just to update the traffic commission, I've put all of our recent, or like the Orienta, there are more recent traffic safety assessment reports that have been written in the last, to say, year and a half. Those have been put on the Board of Trustees work session agenda, and they are going to stay on, and we're just going to work through them, the low cost, and just so that the Board of Trustees is aware that these are the things that have been studied and recommended, and we can be talking about them and prioritizing things going forward. Okay.
Very cool.
Yep.
And finally, Robert, in answer to your other question, the entire traffic commission is always invited to every single walking assessment. Understandably, sometimes people have schedule conflicts. So if you can't make it to one, don't worry, you're not going to get a demerit. All right. So old business, next item. Southbury and Guion, we've already talked about,
Yep.
right? A 4-way stop at Orienta, requested crash data. I'm trying to remember. I think that was a very
Yeah, we're waiting for Dan. Dan will forward to the traffic commissioner when he receives it.
Yep.
Dan, you have anything on that? Yeah,
I didn't, but I'll follow up with Chief DeRusa tomorrow.
great.
Okay.
That was the one where former Chief Leahy said there were some software issues trying to run the
Yeah.
report.
Right.
Yeah.
The next one was 528 Rockland. Excuse me.
Right.
Oh, trying to get a no parking sign put in front of the house. I think, what we decided last month, looking at the minutes, was that, there wasn't really a visibility issue so much as it was maybe a driver behavior issue, but that this resident might be aided by just having kind of another 5 or 6 feet of striping put in front of their house to move that parking back a little bit from their driveway. But that, and Dan, I recall, I think anyway, that the crash data, didn't
There
really
wasn't
bear
any.
out.
Yeah.
There wasn't any crashes in front of the house.
Right.
Is that something that, as with the crosswalk issue that Kelly talked about earlier, that the village can do without a board resolution, or would that need to go up for vote?
We could paint hatch lines anywhere we want. But an actual no parking is a board action.
Right. And I think what we decided as a commission, and again, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this didn't necessarily merit a no parking zone so much as it did just maybe moving back the allowable parking by, a few feet to give the resident a bit more visibility.
Dan, can that be done instead of putting no parking? Just put, paint a couple of,
You can always paint hatch lines, but if someone parks on it, we can't ticket it.
Without the sign.
Yeah, you can't, without restriction, you can't ticket it.
Okay.
So you can always, put hatch lines out there, but without an enforcement tool, there's nothing, we can't issue a ticket if someone parks there.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Go ahead, Robert.
I live around the corner from there, and I looked at it earlier today. The problem with that location is that there's a 4-stop at, I guess it's Waverly and Rockland. And where that located is a very short distance from that 4 corners where cars will be coming out of a turn, and I saw their driveway. Backing out can be very hazardous. I can understand his difficulty. The second problem is the street coming the other direction, not on his side of the street, but the other side of the street. It's a very snake-like street.
Mm-hmm.
It's curvy, it's hilly, and at the top of the hill, it's a short bend, just like cars coming out of the 4 corners of Rockland and Waverly. At the top of the hill, coming out of a bank, cars can't really see forward ahead. So I could see a situation where somebody is backing out of his house that forces maybe another car that's driving down that street to kind of veer to the left, and then another car screaming down the other opposite direction and not having time to see that situation before they can come to a stop. I'm surprised there haven't been more accidents there. But if you look at it carefully, I think especially at night, can be very hazardous.
Yeah. I guess the question, and what the resident was specifically asking for was just a no parking zone for a single parking space in front of them.
Right. Right.
I understand, and I'm expanding his difficulty and the potential that might exist for an accident from the other direction. For the reason
Can we vote on this and then let it go to the Board of Trustees?
Maybe everybody should really look at it before you vote on it.
We already
did.
have.
Yeah, we did.
This
So you
is
recognize
old.
it's a short distance from.
This is old,
and
Robert.
the corner.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is old. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, because the the driveway, where the resident lives, you know, we determine there's not, you know, in that immediate space on Rockland Avenue, any visibility issues. You know, certainly we wanted to try to be accommodating if we could in terms of, you know, moving something back. But as Dan points out, you know, painting hash marks, you know, without kind of making that a no parking zone with signage, you know, doesn't make it an enforceable, you know, violation. I'm uncertain that there's much that we can do at this point. I mean, you know, the struggle always with
Taking
parking
away a
issues
spot.
and yeah, exactly, is taking away a spot where, you know, if residents just don't have the driveway space afforded to them. You know, and I hear what you're saying, Robert. I mean, we've got a lot of local roadways that are challenging to navigate if one goes beyond a certain speed, you know, in their vehicle. And you know, all too often the vehicles that are exceeding the speed limit, that are driving dangerously, are residents themselves, because they're very comfortable with and knowledgeable about the roadways, and they're trying to take cut throughs and avoid things like Fenimore and Palmer and Boston Post, and figure out the, you know, the little local roadway that, especially in the dark, they can kind of like zip around because they know them so well. You
And
know,
this
certainly,
resident has a baby too. Remember they
yeah,
were saying
yeah, absolutely.
it's very hard for them to see coming out of the
Yeah.
driveway.
There's another aspect to this location. Continuing down Rockland towards Palmer, I live in a co-op that's right ahead, and there's a blind driveway that there are no signs. I know I make turns there all the time, and I'm always concerned as I'm going up that hill to make the left turn, whether someone is coming the opposite direction up Rockland. And I don't think there is enough warning signs there for warning people to slow down as they're coming up Rockland, and warning people to slow down in case somebody is turning into that blind driveway. I'd like to know whether there have been any accidents there. That's, especially at night, it could be very hazardous.
Yeah, I think along the entire stretch of Rockland, we didn't really have any crash data.
That's interesting.
So what could we do, Shannon?
I mean, you know, at this point, I think, you know, and please others, you know, toss in if you feel differently, but, you know, particularly because Mr. Sullivan emailed me directly over the past 36 hours, I think it's a matter of posing it back to him, you know, while the village can do some, you know, sort of moderate amount of striping, you know, we can't really put up a no parking zone there. You know, striping can help. And sometimes all people need to see is that, you know, there's construction workers that have come in and set out cones and put down some fresh paint, and they go, oh crap, I can't park there anymore. You know, but if over time, you know, a car creeps over those lines and they don't get cited, and they creep over the lines a little more and they don't get cited, you know, I mean, people will learn that this is in fact, you know, kind of the boy who cried wolf. You know, I don't mean to sound so defeatist, but I wonder whether if I kind of offer that scenario back to the resident and ask whether he'd be comfortable with that. I mean, it just, from the absence of crash data, the absence of any real sort of observed visibility issues, you know, certainly driver behavior is an issue, but I'm not sure that it's a problem for the resident to try to exit their driveway if everybody's behaving the way that they're supposed to be behaving.
Shannon, I thought I thought the resident was okay with us putting stripe and just doing something just so that he could. So
Yeah.
maybe should we just vote on it? What do you think? And then let it go to the Board of Trustees? So that this way.
Or the
and
DPW if we can avoid the board.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's been like, what, 2 months already?
Right, right.
What kind of stripe? Where would it go? And
It's sort of a curvature of, you know, paint with the hash marks that indicate like this is a no parking zone. And it would just be enough to move back that car that would be parked most closely to the resident's driveway. that, that would give them a bit more visibility as they're trying to exit and enter.
Yeah, it'd be a yellow safety paint, something like that.
Yep, highly visible stuff. Yeah.
I think it's important to save a parking space in front of a private house. Can we just put up a sign in both directions, a warning sign that it's a dangerous curve, go slowly, like that, in both directions?
I don't, one of the things, Robert, is the signs that we produce in accordance with the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. I don't know that there is a sign which says dangerous curve. Second, I mean, there's no data to support a designation as a dangerous curve. And if we put something like that out there and someone got into an accident, I think there could be some liability in our part for, saying there's dangerous curve and not doing anything about it.
Right. I mean, the other issue with any kind of signage is cost.
Yeah.
And sadly, Robert and Andres, mostly for your benefit, but my other fellow commissioners will back me up on this. The saying goes that if you put another sign in the village of Mamaroneck right now, we're going to sink into the ocean. There are so many roadway signs, so many of which are largely and summarily ignored, that it becomes, after a while, sort of white noise, which is, again, not to minimize this resident's concern. And I think Lucia brings up a good point. We talked about striping as being a middle of the road kind of solution, a low cost one at that. That could be immediately applied, and the residents seem to be pretty comfortable with that. So, do we need to vote on that, or can we just request that the village move forward on that?
Dan?
I think if you wanted to just make a recommendation to the manager that this is an action you'd like to see undertaken.
Okay.
Because like I said, if there's no restriction, there's no board action required. That could be done strictly through the DPW.
Okay. I'll send Jerry a note.
Who's gonna talk to Jerry? You, Shannon? You'll send Jerry or Dan? Okay, great. Perfect.
Can you clarify?
I'll copy Dan and say it was his idea.
Can you clarify? Can you clarify exactly what we're asking them to do? What our solution is?
Absolutely. So it's an area along where the street parking is right now, of about 5 or 6 feet, where there's highly visible yellow paint that carries out. In other words, you've seen hash marked painted areas on the roadway.
We're going to take away the parking space?
Not an entire parking space. It will simply move back the allowable parking by, 5 or 6 feet or so to give the resident that much more space for visibility.
Well, will it reduce the number of cars that could park on that location?
It probably will. It probably will.
Probably a half a car.
Yep.
I think that's what we talked about.
Yep.
So that's a whole car.
Oh.
One less car that can park there?
It's part of the balance between, pedestrian safety, vehicular safety.
That's right.
I mean,
Yep.
I've been dealing with parking in one way or another for 18 years, and
there's never enough. There's never
there's
enough.
never enough, but I worry about losing 40 spaces. I don't necessarily worry about losing one space.
Exactly.
Should we ask, there are only 3 or 4 houses on that small street. Should we ask the other residents in the other houses if that's an issue for them to lose a parking space?
I think just again, from a process point of view, Robert, what that is, that's opening Pandora's box.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, no. It's look, everything's learning, and I appreciate your questions, because I think it helps us all, kind of remember what our priorities are. But honestly, like, I'll just give a very 60-second thumbnail context speech. Like, when I first joined the Traffic Commission years ago, except for David, You know, there was a group of folks who were just largely reacting to nothing but parking complaints. And it seemed ludicrous to me that, you know, here is this, you know, group of concerned citizens who really what we're mostly talking about and what we really want to see most of all is a roadway network that allows us to move safely and comfortably, right? Whether that is, again, on a bus, in a car, you know, on our bicycle, on our feet, you know, and parking is never going to be resolved because, you know, we're human beings. We want to park all 5 of our vehicles within easy reach, you know, of our front door. But you know, the fact of the matter is that, you know, safety and everything like that has got to take a priority. So your questions are not out of line. They're too truly appreciated. And finally, in old business, we had the stop sign at Rushmore and Stiles. We were going to look for crash data on this.
I think I got it. I think I sent it to you. I don't think there were any crashes.
There were no crashes.
I did ask the building department to send code enforcement out there.
Okay.
I think there may have been 1 or 2 issues they picked up on, but I will check my email to see if they ever responded back to me in writing on that.
Okay.
And I think that's the one that I wrote to the resident about anyway.
So that's something that we can maybe take off?
Yeah.
Okay, great. One less, Lucia.
Yay.
All right, well, that concludes old business, and I am so sorry, guys. I know I said 60 minutes is my goal, and here we are an hour and 37 minutes in. But let me ask if there's a motion to approve the November minutes.
I hate to do this. I thought we were going to talk about the McDonald's.
Oh, wait, Robert, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, before you go on, Shannon, we have to do the follow-ups and we have to do other before we can move on, you know,
All right.
finish up.
Open this back up.
See the other? I think this is all Dan, where the crosswalk, the traffic light is not in sync on Fenimore, and then the follow-ups.
All right, the traffic light not being in sync, it's not a sync issue. I think they requested either additional time for crossing and also to allow for the right turn.
I think you were going to follow up with the
I think Jerry followed up with the DOT.
He did. I was involved in that email chain.
And so what's the outcome?
I don't know if he's heard back yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we'll leave it on.
Yeah.
And then what about the follow-ups? Like, so Dan, we were going back and forth with Villa.
Was it Villa or Mamaroneck Avenue where we?
It's Mamaroneck Avenue, Villa Avenue, and well, the left-hand, the no left-hand turn, that's going to be once they pave. But the Hatchin. So
Yeah,
Jerry said it was. Remember, Jerry said it was done, and I
Yeah.
go by there 3 times a week, and it hasn't been done. And the resident, actually, the resident was supposed to join tonight. I guess she didn't. But it's still not done.
Okay, let me check if that was ever approved by the board. If it wasn't, I will put it on the agenda for their consideration if this was recommended by the traffic commission. I'm fairly confident it was approved by the board, though. I'll check, though.
Dan, I think there was a whole series of emails last week over this, and I think this was a case where you had gone out and in the field, you guys decided something different than hatching. Am I remembering that right, or am I?
It was either hatching or moving the sign back.
Right.
I can't recall.
And I think you decided on moving the sign back.
Yeah.
I
So
think
But something about you guys put 2 signs out there or a sign out there, but the resident is saying that there's still parking on the side there. So I asked her to join the meeting, but I don't see her.
Okay, I'll follow up with Tony. I said with everything, I'm only working in the office 2 days a week right now, so.
Yeah, no problem.
It's a little feel like a nomad.
And then, so then Union and Tompkins, the same thing, we'll just hold off on that?
Yeah, after
Well,
the meeting last month, I spoke to Matt Carmody from AKRF.
Mhm.
And he was gonna take a look at it and work up a design for us for hatching and painting.
Okay, and then Stylish, it's not completed, and North Barry, also same with that.
Stylish?
Standish.
Standish.
So I'm sorry.
Lucia, you are stylish.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think with Standish, we that's the road is Harrison Avenue, which is the state road,
Yes,
which is brings up larger issues.
right, so, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna leave them on. Perfect.
Excellent.
That's, all right. Well, we're done with our stuff, so.
Can I get back to McDonald's?
I think that was one that we addressed last month, maybe, Robert? And-
McDonald's,
yeah,
yeah, it's a state road.
correct.
Yeah.
It's a state
And-
road and it's a,
Shannon, you were gonna email the resident? Did you ever email?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Add
so we're-
something about McDonald's?
Yeah. I mean,
I think what you
That
talked
was,
about,
well, I think I think I sent the email to
Michael.
commission talking about
Katz.
some of the larger issues there with
Mhm.
McDonald's. They've talked to the village about trying to reorient their site, but there are a lot of other issues at play there.
Right.
They want to make the building smaller, reorient the site to allow for more queuing on the site, which would hopefully help that issue. But there's a lot of planning and zoning issues that need to be addressed because of that.
Right.
Which is beyond my pay grade.
are we talking about McDonald's?
Yes.
Yes.
People making the left turn, I think they're making illegal left turns. Isn't it up to the police to give tickets or
What-
stop
what is
them?
it?
It's not our road.
And,
We just-
and,
I don't think it's illegal to make left-hand turns into there.
right.
Right.
No,
What
it's
did-
not. They can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this at our last meeting.
Right.
so-
If you want, Robert, what I'll do is, let's say, I think I did email the traffic commission last month about this because I knew it wasn't going to be at last month's meeting. I will find that email and I'll forward it to you about the McDonald's site.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, gang, do I have a motion to approve the November minutes?
Oh, I
Thank
can't
you, David.
approve it.
I know, you guys haven't seen him. David moved.
So moved.
I second so moved.
Thank you, Lucia. And all those in favor of approving the November minutes,
Aye.
thank you very
So
much.
done, so done, so done.
So done it is. Excellent. Thank you all so very much. And I appreciate you hanging in there for an hour and 45 minutes. I promise we'll keep doing better next time. But this is just always great. And it's
Was it-
exciting to have so many residents that are interested in trying to make our little corner of the world a little bit safer. So
Just a
appreciate
reminder, if someone could email me the archival photo of Palmer Avenue.
I'll send the entire package of attachments to you, Kelly, as well as Robert and Andres, so that you all have, visibility into what the heck we were talking about all night. And
I just pulled up the agenda and just tried following along as best I could.
you were wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Enjoy the holidays.
And thank you, village team. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy
holidays.
Hanukkah, happy.
Jason, did you invite
Christmas.
everyone to the virtual tree lighting ceremony?
What's that?
Yeah, but it's on our social media. It's on LMC, Saturday, 6 p.m. live. You can stream it on
Wow.
or on their website.
Virtual tree lighting.
Virtual.
I'm trying to boost Jason's ego. His stature.
Jason, you're doing a good job.
Thank you, Lucia. I appreciate that.
You too, Dan and Kelly and Shannon and all of you.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, everybody.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.